As Margaret said, we're doing primarily a bond review of our two large projects. We will talk a little bit about the operating budget at the very beginning. If anyone, either here today or watching this after the fact, has any questions after this presentation, they can call the town office at 236-4730, or you can email us at wvmanager@watervillevalley.org. So on page 1, the second slide down, is just a review of what's in the packet and the page numbers there for you to reference. The third slide, before I talk about 2021, I just want to do a quick review of 2022 and what happened with our budget and the COVID-19 pandemic. Our revenues were reduced. Our revenue estimates were reduced during 2020 because obviously, especially in the recreation department, but in all departments, we did see a drop off in the use of our services, except for water, sewer, and trash, which we'll talk about in a little while. So we did reduce our budget estimates, and we also made reductions in our expenditures. Department heads went through and as there were some services that they normally provide that they didn't provide in 2020, they reduced their expenditures on the department on a department by department basis. We did see a significant, as you're all aware, we did see a significant increase in the resident population, and almost all of the commercial activity was curtailed during the pandemic with all of the stay-at-home orders, et cetera. The one thing that we did see were a lot of folks coming in for the day, using the hiking trails and walking around town. So there was an increased use in that, but the actual paying customers in the regular commercial activity was definitely down for the year. And as I said, the water and sewer uses and the amount of trash that we actually picked up around town, even though we saw no commercial activity during the year, all of those were the same or increased from prior years. So we had more people here on a full-time basis. We've seen that with our resident population increase to over 600 people now. But we also saw those day trip folks come into town, and that used more water, more sewer services, and they generated more trash. On page 2, the first slide, I just want to highlight that the selectmen have to have an appropriation to spend money during the fiscal year. And the proposed budget appropriations equal all of the expenses we anticipate during 2021. Whatever is approved by town meeting on May 11th is the most that we can spend during the year without some sort of public notice and other meetings to get approval by the town to expend that additional money. Page 2, the second slide down, has an overview of the 2021 budget. That ties into the budget summary. That's pages 11 to 13 in the packet. And then there's budget detail from pages 13 to 19 in the packet. Just to highlight, the budget is basically flat. We, with all of the proposed expenditures and the offsetting revenue, we are estimating that the amount of taxes to be raised will go down approximately $8,800. The third slide on page 2 shows what that tax impact is on each of those properties valued at those different amounts, basically $75 for a $250,000 home. So you can check that out in terms of your own property valuation. I'm going to skip now to, I'll tell you here in just a second, the revenues. And we can come back to specifics in the operating budget. But if you go to page 7 of the packet and look at the first slide, it shows you our estimated revenues for the year. This is just the first estimate that we do. The revenues are adjusted by the Board of Selectmen in September based on what we actually collect. And they can be modified by the board when the day that we set the actual tax rate in October. They can adjust the revenues as well. Please note that the $7,422,000 number includes $5,900,000 in bond proceeds. So the actual other than tax and bond revenue number is about $1,522,000. Now, if we move on to page 8, the first slide, I'd like to start talking about the bond issues. We are continuing our public hearing, as Margaret said, we're required by law to provide the public with information about how much we are proposing to town meeting for our bond issues and what those bond issues are for. So this year we have 2 bond issues. The first one is for the first phase of a project to replace our wastewater treatment plant, which I'll talk about in more detail here in a second. And the other, that's $5 million. And the other project that is being proposed is $900,000 for road repairs. The bonds must be voted on by paper ballot after the discussion. The articles have to be, the voting has to be open for an hour, and we need 3/5 majority for approval of those warrant articles. And that's 3/5 of the people attending town meeting that day. So page 8, the second slide down, the projects are part of a capital improvements plan that's designed by staff and the planning board. Once that plan is approved by the planning board, it goes to the selectmen, and they approve the warrant, the inclusion of projects on the budget request for town meeting. Historically, we've had a 6 to 12 year plan. What we're going to talk about today is the low end of that, the 6-year plan, including funding costs and estimates for that 6-year plan. The 6-year plan does include all capital needs as determined by the planning board for those years. The third slide, again, just shows you the 2 projects. Page 9, the first slide, the wastewater treatment plant. So the existing wastewater treatment plant is 47 to 48 years old right now. We have very aging equipment. Some original equipment is still in operation from back in the 1970s. A lot of equipment in the plant has degraded over time because we use chemicals to treat the wastewater, and they are corrosive, and it's a very damp situation in there. If you have ever been in the plant, it is basically a large open room with a lot of open water tanks in it. So it's a very humid situation. So there's a lot of rust, et cetera, that just takes its toll on the equipment. Although we have replaced equipment as necessary since the 1970s, we, as I said, still have some original equipment in there, and it's becoming very difficult to get third-party maintenance support of that equipment and to get replacement parts. We have a lot of that original equipment that was fabricated specifically for our plant, and the community or the business, the company that fabricated that they no longer exist. So it is getting more difficult as we go on to get support for that. Also, we lack some key safety features in there. We do not have an actual heating ventilation system in the plant. We have space heaters that heat the big open room, but there's no air exchangers or anything like that. And that will come into play because the EPA has notified us back in December that we are going to be getting a new permit to discharge that treated water from the plant. We discharge it into the Mad River to dispose of it, okay, once it's been treated. We have a set of guidance from the EPA that sets limits on different chemicals and different materials in that wastewater before we can discharge it into the river. The EPA has told us that those requirements are going to get more stringent, and our existing plant cannot meet those more stringent requirements. So we have started to look at this since we've been looking at it since December, and at the present time, there's no way to go in and just basically rebuild the existing plant or renovate it in any way, because we have to keep treating sewer water while we make these changes. So you can't do both in our existing plant. Plus, the plant, when it was built, was not very maintenance friendly, let's say. We would basically have to take the entire roof off of the plant to refurbish it in any meaningful way. So,
We've done that once,
and
right?
we have actually taken a section of the roof off to replace a couple of the tanks. That's right, Mark. So we just, in looking at it, we need to build a new plant at this point. So if you go to the second slide on page 9, we are doing investigations of new treatment processes. As part of this, there are different ways to treat wastewater before you discharge it, and there are different places that we could discharge it. So we are currently, everything is on the table. So we will be doing that work through the rest of this year and into 2022. Our plan is to use the money that we're requesting this year, the $5 million, to do several things. One of them is to look at the different options that we have for discharging. So the third slide goes through some of the uses that we will make use of the money that we are requesting. First of all, we, in addition to building the new plant, designing it and going through the options, et cetera, with the engineers, we also have to maintain our current plant while we build the new plant. So they're not gonna, EPA and the State Department of Environmental Services is not going to stop monitoring us, and we have to continue to meet all of their requirements while we build the new plant. So we need to maintain the existing facility, and we have several major components of that that are basically getting very old and are starting to fail. So part of the $5 million would be used to maintain what we have right now. Everything that we replace or repair, we will do so with an eye to reusing it with the new plant. So if we have to buy a pump or something else, we're going to try to utilize that pump in the new plant once we build it. We also have to do all of the design, engineering, and permitting. Again, that's through next year as well, so about another 18 months or so. We have an allowance in our estimate to purchase land if we need to. We don't know what the footprint of the new plant will be at this point in time. We don't know if we can do it on our existing property or if we're going to have to try to purchase land. Well, we've got the Forest Service on one side and we've got a private property owner on the other. So one of those two. But again, it's not, there's no definitive use of the money yet. It's a contingency more or less, but we need the flexibility to be able to make the purchase if we do need to. But that is one of the purposes in the wording of the warrant article that you will see is land purchase. We also, there is so much new technology out there, new ways to treat wastewater that are more energy efficient, that are take less chemicals, etc. We want to pilot some of these new technologies. And basically that would mean you find a company that has this new technology, they bring part of a facility in on a trailer or something like that. You basically hook it up to the wastewater treatment plant and use their technology to treat our wastewater. So these piloting things will allow us to try out these new technologies at the lowest investment, if you will, in trying them out. So we don't want to have to build all of these facilities. We'd like to just bring them in on a trailer, try them out. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But there is some new ways to do things that Dylan Tucker, our wastewater treatment plant lead operator, has done, and so we want to try them out up here. And also federal and state permitting, the whole process with the new EPA permit, we will have to meet whatever guidelines they give us for the next 3 years before the new plant comes online. The other reason for asking for the $5 million at this point in time is that our current interest rates are favorable. And we anticipate right now, with whatever the final plant design is, that we will spend somewhere between $15 and $20 million in total between keeping the new plant going and building the new, or keeping the existing plant going or building the new plant. We would be looking at that much money. So the $5 million is really the first step. And our goal is to use this money that we're asking for on May 11th through the end of 2022. And by November or December of 2022, we will have a finalized plan that we will be able to get cost estimates on, and then town meeting in March of 2023 would be when we would come back with the rest of the funding. So if the total project cost is 15 million, everything, and we've already had the appropriation of the 5 million, the request in 2023 would be 10. Okay, so we're gonna be able to have a much more detailed cost estimate for you before we ask for the appropriation, and we will know how much of the 5 million we've had to spend in these 2 years before we get to 2023. So that's that bullet on slide 3 that says the unexpended funds from this $5 million would be used for construction of the new plant. So you will also see that in the wording of the warrant article. On page 10, the first slide, as I said, we could be spending up to $20 million in bond authorizations under our current estimates. All of these bonds, whether it's the $5 million bond or the other bond in 2023, the maximum that we can finance these monies for right now is 29 years. So we would, all of our projections as far as the actual tax rate impact have been based on a 29-year repayment. Now, the other thing about our financial impact estimates at this point, we're not taking into account any other funding source other than the town of Waterville Valley. So these numbers are to actually finance the entire $20 million ourselves. We are working with our senators and Congresswoman Custer to seek federal grants. You've all heard in the news about the infrastructure monies and everything else that are potentially coming from Washington. That could be, you know, some amount of money could be used for this project. We are trying to secure that funding. We're going to other agencies like the Department of Agriculture Rural Development Office and the State Department of Environmental Services, State Revolving Fund, to look at low interest loans and possible loan forgiveness programs. We are going to try every avenue we can to finance some or all of this $20 million from other agencies so that your tax bill is as low as it possibly can be on this project. The other thing about, so the financial impact, if you look at the first bullet point of slide 1 on page 10, the third thing, the impact there, once all of the bonds are financed, the impact of the wastewater treatment plant, if we have to do all $20 million for 29 years, we're estimating that that would impact the tax rate at about $3.60 per thousand. It would decrease over the 29 years, but at least in the peak years, the impact would be around $3.60. In addition to that, the capital program includes roads, vehicles, buildings, and maintenance of all of those things. So the rest of the bond issue is the second bullet point there. We're looking at another $4.8 million for all of those things combined. And so the impact of that over the life of those bonds is about $1.04. So if you combine those two together, it comes out to about $6.26 in the peak year. So somewhere between the $1.62 and $6.26, which happens in 2027. That is a very large amount of money as far as the tax rate goes, and we understand that. And again, we're going to be trying to reduce that as much as we can. Now, the second slide there talks about the 900. Let me stop there because I'm droning. And you guys, I don't want you to go to sleep. So anybody have any questions specifically about the wastewater treatment plant? Wow, you either all went to sleep or I did a good job. One of the two. Okay, good. So the second slide there, well, I'm going to move on to the other project. Not one to beg for problems. So the other warrant article that we have for May 11th is $900,000 for road repairs. We started with the pedestrian study, which was completed in 2014, 2015. We have had this project, which is Valley Road, Tecumseh Road, and Snows Brook Road for about the last 4 years. We have all of the design engineering completed, and we have had these cost estimates updated each year. We have submitted this project several times for grant funding, and we'll see it is the first year of a multi-year project to improve our roads. We recently completed a study by the HEB engineers. They evaluated all of our roads in town, and and they gave us a priority list of every single road. You don't want to know the total cost of estimate that they gave us, but it was over $6 million to repair all of the roads. We're not doing that. So, we do have this report that they've given us, which is going to be the basis for the follow-on phases of this. And so they have given us their recommended priorities, and the town core working group, the planning board, and the selectmen will be looking that over each year and selecting a number of roads to do. We also will be coordinating if we need to replace a water line or a sewer line or something like that. We will coordinate the road repairs so that we can do all of the work at the same time and not have to go back in and rip up brand new pavement to fix a water line. The good news on this project is we just received word yesterday that from the North Country Council Regional Planning Commission that this project has been ranked #1 in the region for Transportation Alternative Program grant funding. That's the good news. The bad news is we're still competing against 33 projects across the state of New Hampshire, and there's only about $5.7 million allocated to the program right now. So this would be an 80-20 split in the grants. So if we're successful, we could get a large portion of this basically $1 million project funded. So we're hopeful that we will do well at the state level. We did well in the North Country anyway. So, any questions about the road project?
Is this just repairing or replacing as it is, or are they going to do anything to reconfigure and get rid of curbs?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did leave that out. Good question. So we are going to reconfigure the roads. We're going to improve drainage, but the biggest thing that we're going to redesign and rebuild is a pedestrian and bike path along with the road. So there'll actually be 3 traveled areas, right? The 2 vehicle lanes and a bike pedestrian path that's 8 to 10 feet wide.
So we get rid of the curbs?
That is not in this particular project. Yes, there are a couple of small sections of curbing that would be removed. But yes, as we look at Valley Road and some other roads in town, the recommendation in the pedestrian plan is to get rid of the curbing, and that would make maintenance a lot easier for public works as well. But, it's pretty expensive to do, but I think in the long run, it would help us. So, yep.
Do you have to buy any land specifically, as I look at the Tecumseh Road, for example, if you're going to put a pedestrian bike path down?
No, our existing, we've talked to the village condos especially because they're the ones who are most impacted, and the right of way, we are going to narrow the traveled way of the vehicle lanes because with smooth surfaces and wide surfaces, Dave can tell you, we get fast traffic. So if we narrow the traveled lane, it helps slow people down. So, but we can get, well, as much as you can. But we can get both travel lanes and the bike pedestrian path in the town right of way. And actually any drainage that we need to go on to village condos, they've already indicated that they will work with us on doing that.
Okay.
Any other questions about the roads? So 2 very big projects. Again, we need 3/5 majority vote to approve the projects. And that, yes, Alan.
I'd like to address the road projects a bit, but I'm happy to wait till the end of the meeting.
Okay,
Your choice.
well, do you want to go over any more detail or any other articles specifically for the hearing?
I don't think so.
Uh, So I'm not gonna, we will, like I said, you can call or come into town office and we can talk about any questions that you have about the operating budget, but because it's basically flat, there isn't a lot within the operating budget that is memorable. Alan, I know you have some thoughts.
Alan, can you use the microphone because people can hear a lot
I
better?
will,
Yeah, thank you.
okay, I trust this is working. Hopefully that we will reach a somewhat large audience. I'm sorry, that's not the way things work these days. I would like to discuss a little bit specifically the road projects. I guess I disagree with the approaches being taken on one level or another. Before I get into that, address the people here, and specifically those that are not, that the Board of Selectmen mark the school board. I don't think they're appreciated enough. People just don't realize the difficulty you have in doing your jobs. And the more I sort of look from a distance, the more I realize it's a damn difficult job. And I think people have to realize and appreciate it more. That having been said, when we get on to the disagreement a bit, as I understand it, that basically there was a original proposal of engineering that's about twice the cost of the project that's being considered. Given a couple of things the dynamics that are going on now. Number one, and Mark alluded to it, the interest rates now are probably as favorable as they like to be. As it relates to the road project, some of this borrowing is going to take place in year 6 and 7. It's being done in tranches. So in year 6, what was being done that day, we'll borrow for that and pay it off over 29 years. So the rate is likely going to be higher. Additionally, the money that may be available now through the rumored infrastructure bill may not be available in the future. Another thought, and then I would, given that, I would take a fresh look at the larger project, because we are a resort, and I think better project makes for better roads, better recreation, better appearance, and benefits everyone. Secondarily, what's being planned now in this incremental approach sort of doesn't make that much sense to me. The way it's being planned, it's not a great deal of money, and it's being played out over 6 and 7 years. That means 6 or 7 years of disruption, dust, et cetera, and the cost will only be higher as we go down the road. The bonding that's budgeted goes up fourfold in the capital budget. So I really wonder if a better approach might not be to take what is proposed, try and get it done in a couple of years if it's at all possible, bond the whole thing now, get it done, we'll have a much better value for having done it. And it may be relatively economical to do it that way, particularly in life. It makes no sense to me knowing you face significantly more costs down the road because you planned it that way, and then show up with a budget that says we're going to reduce the taxes this year. Does that make any sense? You can get applause for it, but I think in a management point of view, it doesn't make much sense. You're budgeting by hockey stick. It makes no sense. You can avoid it. So that's my 2 cents. So I'd like it to be reconsidered. I like to see it done in sort of in a personal way. If some of this comes along in 7 years and the tax rate goes from $1 to $4 and change for the capital budget, the reality is at my age, statistically, I'm not going to have to pay for it. But I am willing to pay for it now. So that's my 2 cents.
Your response, Mark?
Well, no, and Alan and I have been having this discussion, and so there are other considerations. We are limited in the amount of time to spend the money, and, like Alan said, we need to look at this, but, yeah, so we have taken a lot of what you've said, Alan, into consideration, and potentially, we could look at the $300,000 projects that are in the capital program at this point in time and talk to the planning board about the possibility of combining those and doing them sooner rather than stretching it out over the full 6 years. So it is something we can continue to look at.
Mark?
Yeah.
Procedurally,
Yeah,
as I understand the rules of the town, should we desire, should we think Mr. Zeldo's ideas are brilliant, if you think that way, we can propose an amendment to a warrant article after deliberative session. Is that correct?
that's correct. And I'm going to make sure with bond counsel that includes bond issues as well.
I think I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I've already started that.
Let us know ahead of time.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Lisa.
I have a question. I think our roads always go bad every winter. Don't we need a certain amount of money in our funds to have it every year, a certain repair on those roads?
We do keep capital
We do
reserves.
understand.
Brings holes in it, and we have to fix them already. And so even if we put all the roads out, after a couple of years, they all go bad again anyway.
Yeah, so Lisa's comment is regarding maintenance of the roads, the fact that the winters are very harsh on the roads and that we are continually repairing them. And that is true, what she said. We do keep a maintenance reserve for those sorts of things, and the guys, you've seen them out around, especially now that it's gotten a little bit nicer and dried out a little more from the winter. We're getting out and doing that regular maintenance. But the projects that we're talking about will include rebuilding those roads that we need to. That study that our engineering firm did identified for the selectmen those roads that they recommend a full rebuild on. So we will actually address what's underneath the roads because that's what causes the potholes and the other problems that we have. So
I think I missed that part.
yeah, well, I'm sorry, I just skipped over the fact that we've had this engineering study, but we will do, as part of these projects, right, Jim? We will rebuild those roads that the engineers recommend. And we're going to put new drainage in if that's required as well.
Mark, there are some roads in this 900,000 other than Haggard's, and we're doing something that our engineers are recommending, correct?
That's right. That's a good point, Margaret. There are several smaller roads, and I don't have the names of all of them, but there's like 4 or 5 other roads that the engineers identified as just needing some minor work, okay? And so the idea is you spend a little amount of money now, and you don't have to completely rebuild them for 10 or 15 years. So those roads are included in this $900,000. We will be fixing those as well as the 3 major roads. Okay, but that type of work will be very, very minor in scope. Any other questions or thoughts on this? Well, thank you. We do want as many people to be as informed as possible, and thank you for taking the time and listening to this information. The town report, which has the complete warrant in it and all of the reports from our departments and everything about what they did during 2020 will be out in March, next Wednesday, not in March, next Wednesday. And so please, we will put it out at the post office, here at the rec, out at town hall and other places around town. So please, pick up a copy, and if you have any questions or you talk to someone who has questions, have them contact us and we'll try to get you answers.
And the town, it's on the website now
And,
too.
oh, that's right, and a PDF, if you like reading it on your iPad or on your computer, there is a PDF copy of the town report on the website right now. So you can download it and carry it around with you. That's what I plan to do, because it's so exciting. All right, thank you very much, I appreciate your time. The selectmen are going to continue the rest of their meeting.
So we are bringing our official public bond and budget hearing to a close. Thank you all for attending. We'll now get on with our regular business. Privilege of the floor. Do we have anybody here who wants to raise an issue or bring something up? Seeing no hands, we're going to move on to the approval of minutes from the March meetings. There are 5 of them. Stepped out, okay. So I've looked at all of those minutes now, and Rich, did you have a chance to look at them and give your input
I
as
did.
well?
Yeah,
I have-
Sharon,
yeah.
right.
Okay,
The last 2 sets, Margaret, the ones in the packet,
right.
I'm not sure you had time to
And the
review it.
ones,
Yeah.
the ones that you sent us ahead of time, Sharon.
Yes,
Yeah, right. So there's 5 in total, I believe.
yes.
Yes. Okay. So if there are no corrections or amendments to those, can I have a motion to approve the minutes for those 5 meetings? That would be on 2/10, 2/24, 3/5, 3/8, and 3/10.
I will make that motion.
All right, and I will second it. All in favor? Margaret, aye.
Good job.
We have a majority. Okay, onward.
Mike is missing all the fun.
I know, this is always the fun part. Moving on to financial reports. Mark, do you have anything you want to highlight?
No, Margaret, I don't, unless you have any questions about a particular department. I think they're all tracking along pretty well. Actually, highways are doing better than I thought. We had a pretty mild winter. We didn't have significant overtime, and costs for winter maintenance were probably lower than normal. I haven't really looked at them in
May
detail
not be
yet.
over yet.
Oh, well, and it may not be over, like Friday, we'll have another foot of snow, but who knows?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think we're doing pretty well in all of the departments.
I got a question on the
Yeah, Mike.
financial report.
Yeah, please.
Brooke, where'd all the money come from?
Question, you really don't know.
You've got a huge collection of names. What?
Camp registration.
Pre-registrations for
That's
camp.
what I thought. And is camp all sold out now?
There's like maybe 1 or 2 spots here and there, but yeah, I mean,
All right.
98% full.
Great. Any feedback with people liking it or being upset with the way it was done?
I think that all of the residents and taxpayers are very happy with the process. In fact, the last school board meeting or PTA meeting I was at, they wanted to, really thank us for considering that this year. And so I definitely should have just passed it on to you guys already, but they were very grateful for that. And also, there's 10 to 15 people on the wait list on all these weeks. But fortunately, they're not our residents and taxpayers.
Right, good job.
Well, to all of us, I mean, I think that was really kind.
Okay, anything else on financial? Let's go on to department head reports and our COVID update. And I do have a COVID question because some of us are sitting here without masks and other people are sitting with masks. My understanding is that in an indoor meeting, if you are socially distanced, once you sit down, it's all right to lower your mask. Is that correct, David?
It is.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
I didn't want to set a bad example, but I was pretty sure that was
No,
the
I
case.
didn't want to set a bad example either. so,
Right, right, so,
But yes, if you're socially distanced, then it is acceptable.
right.
And you're vaccinated, is that another class of, classification?
And if you're vaccinated, then that's another, you can actually.
So we have a full table of vaccinated people in front of you. And I'm hoping that many of our department heads and many of our employees have also taken advantage of that. I know a lot of our employees, particularly from public safety, have gone down and helped out. And I think, Mark, you helped out down at the Plymouth site, which was a well-oiled machine, I have to say. They were unbelievable. So I encourage folks to do that because I'd like everybody to be able to sit comfortably unmasked.
And it is open now as of Monday. It's open to all adults, right?
Oh, very cool.
In New
That's
Hampshire,
correct.
With the point.
all ages, with appointment. You have to go on and register and get an appointment, but it is open to.
And I didn't see the fine details, but also this coming Monday to out-of-state folks, students, and that's
Second, people that are
second homeowners. So that should pretty much include everyone who potentially is here having to take a trip back to their home state.
Yes, Alan?
I just inform people, if you go on the New Hampshire website, you're gonna be misinformed. That indeed, in-state, out-of-state, via the dump, you can register, you can get vaccinated. That is what's happening in reality. The website, at least when I looked at it on Saturday, I believe, still had the April 19th date. It still had the age restriction, still was mentioned. But that's not correct. Pragmatically, that's not what's happening. It's all
Okay.
Yeah.
David, what else from public safety?
Not too much to report other than, working at those sites and keeping everything going. We're gonna start talking about, we're gonna have our first meeting about having the derby in late May, June. Brooke and I have talked about number of restrictions for participants, that sort of thing, at the registration, and we think we can successfully pull it off and still maintain the precautions.
We didn't have it in 2020, right?
No, we do not.
That's sad. Yes. Yeah.
So are the fish still in the pond?
No, they did not stock it last year.
Yeah, probably not, so, we always stock them at each year, so.
Okay.
I did notice for the first time last night, a bear wandering through my front yard, so
That's correct.
they are back.
They are out and they're back, so we ask that you bring a bird feeders in at night if you are putting them out during the day, because food sources are, pretty scarce this time of year, so any little bit will attract them. So please bring them in. The best that we can do is not to habitate them to different food sources within town. We want them to be outside of town looking for food. So the best that everyone can do is bring that stuff in.
Chain those dumpsters.
And I didn't want
They are all set.
I know.
It is up to the individual utilizing the dump
Yes, I noticed.
to reattach it. So hopefully they will do that.
And I noticed the chains are long enough this year so that you can actually
Well,
unhook
there's a fine line between the chain being long enough for people to use it and the bear to be able to get as far there and rip the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna be, yeah.
We try to, yeah.
Okay. All righty. Dylan, we never go to you, so let's go to you.
Everything is running well, so we're still working on getting that quote from Apex, looking for that line camera.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Dylan.
We're still working on getting that quote from Apex Construction to inspect that monthly raw wastewater line that goes to the lagoon.
The issue, the leak issue
Is that
inside the
still leaking?
building, oh, yeah.
We haven't bypassed it yet.
Not yet, no, we're waiting, the contractors need to coordinate, there's two different contractors involved, right?
There's
Or
actually
three now, yeah.
Three contractors, it's getting them to all kind of stick together, because it all has to happen at the same exact time. In order to accomplish fixing that and inspecting. But short of that, everything is running well, the facility. What I wanted to talk about more so than anything is the drinking water flows, the wastewater flows. So our drinking water flows for the past 3 years have been within 2 or 3% of each other, even with everything being basically shut down in 2020, people coming here. So still to date this year, we're within 1 or 2% of 2020. But on the wastewater side, it's a little bit different because of the drought we're in right now. So we're currently 6.72 inches short of 2020's precipitation to date, which in 2020 was a drought beginning. Compared to 2019, we're 15 inches below where we were the year date. So if you don't get any precipitation, we're going to be in some trouble. Comparatively, the wastewater flows, if you add that rainfall or precipitation amount in, we would surpass 2020 and 2019, just based on the lagoons and how much rainfall across 3.36 acres we would get. So we're still, the town is still full. It doesn't appear so, with hotels not being too busy, but the town is still full. But other than that, it's basically.
You can really see the dryness comparatively out on the trails too. I mean, this is called mud season for a reason, but this year, there isn't a whole lot of mud. There's occasional patches, but no, a lot of the trails are absolutely dry. It's truly amazing. So just a reminder to people, we still have our water restrictions on from last fall. And Mark, can you just review?
Basically, they're outdoor use restrictions. So other than residential use inside your house, we ask that people not irrigate, that they try to limit washing vehicles and any other ancillary uses of the water other than your inside use.
It'd be particularly important now once we get by Friday, people will be out fertilizing and.
Well, that's right, and as people get their gardens going again, their flower beds or whatever, we're gonna, and as Dylan pointed out, we're double behind where we were last year precipitation wise. And we ended the summer in a severe drought situation before we finally got some rain in the fall. So going in this normally wet time of the year, we are extraordinarily dry.
Well, I think we should notify, maybe get it up on our website.
Yeah.
Even though it's muddy out there and it might rain for a day or so.
Right.
We're still so far behind, because I don't think that way. I'm thinking there's mud in my yard, that the snow piles just went away.
Right.
That, we replenished ourselves, the river's low because, river drains a lot, but, yeah, I think we need to publicize that.
And I think that's a key point, Mike, is the precipitation shows us that we had one of the least snowy years in 10 years?
Yeah.
So the actual snowpack that we've had to melt has been significantly
I get it, but
less.
I look around and I see the plowed,
Yeah.
push by
Right.
backfilled piles of snow that are melting. And that's where my point of reference is as to what kind of snow we have.
Right.
Mark, question. The beautification of the flower boxes that are going to be put up, it's quite a bit. Is that a conflict in this concept of who can and who cannot water?
Yeah, we're gonna need to, we'll talk to Sean about those plans, but we definitely need to make him aware of the situation.
He's got something like 250 plants in
Yeah.
his pool room, right?
Barrel.
And they've got 100 barrels, 150 barrels plus
Mhm.
plants, so.
How many plants are in this? Hundreds of plants.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
So we'll definitely need to have a talk with Sean.
I didn't know whether there was gonna be some kind of dispensation or
Well, that's gonna be something that we're gonna have to add to.
we're gonna have to
the
deal
agenda.
with, yeah, okay. All righty, let's see, Jim,
My big question, I guess, well, I can, not to move off of the precipitation, but, we're gonna find out, I guess, Saturday morning, who was, more accurate. So it's either accurate weather, which is calling for all rain, WMUR, which is calling for 4 to 8 inches, or the National Weather Service, which is calling for 14 inches of snow.
I'll go with AccuWeather myself.
I would like to go with AccuWeather, but, we shall.
You got the town manager shaking his head like you want you guys out there plowing, right?
Well, no, I don't want them out there
That kind
plowing,
of
but I
goes along
trust
with,
the
my
national.
budget being down a little bit, because this is all overtime.
Right.
That's right.
So, but my big question, I guess, would be, we did not last year put out the benches to discourage people sitting together and in clusters. So what would you like to do this year?
Mike has left at another.
Because I can
point.
He must know when things are.
That's right, right, leaving the hard decisions to us.
What,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, what?
the benches,
The
Oh, the
benches.
benches.
the benches.
When would you be putting them out normally?
Soon, normally,
Yeah,
uh,
would have already,
Well, no,
Well-
beginning of May.
beginning of May.
beginning of May.
We have another meeting on April 28th.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a little conflicted over
Yeah.
that. I mean, you know, Mark and I had this discussion yesterday in his office, not about the benches specifically, but on another topic. There's still COVID out there. And apparently the strains that are going around right now are a lot more contagious. Spread more easily, at least, than some of the other strains that we've been through. And we still have a lot of people visiting us. So on the whole, I am kind of waiting for when the state of New Hampshire announces scientifically that it's safe to do some of these kind of things. The other side of this coin is apparently the CDC recently put out some information saying people don't get this from contact. You know, they don't get it from, you know,
More unlikely.
Surface.
right, from surfaces. So I don't know. Mike,
Yes,
benches or no benches?
benches.
See, there you go. Yeah. What do
You
you
know,
think?
what I've heard, I kind of tail into what you said. Contact is very minimal, especially as they're outside. But if there's a reason to, any chance of something happening, I'd say no if you have objections or concerns.
What do you think, Rich?
I'll go with the benches, although I'm willing to wait.
There you
a couple
go.
weeks.
Got a majority of selectmen saying yes on the benches.
Thank you.
One person feeling a little cautious, but on the other hand, yeah.
But I'd wait till next week myself.
Well,
Just
I'd wait
give-
until the snow.
Well, that's what I meant Friday.
But you're gonna have to clean the snow off the benches, yes. Yeah. Anything else, Jim?
No, not unless you have any questions.
You're out there doing road patches and
We
things like that?
are, doing as much as we can.
Road ban.
With the road ban we have lifted, I decided that, the roads, pretty much settled down. Frost is pretty much gone. So, other area towns are lifting the bans as well. So, just, it makes it easier for everybody now so that we get a lot of calls for deliveries, you know, people can't deliver because the road's banned and, you know, and some people try to sneak it in. Contractors this year were very, very good about, scheduling. So if it was going to be 25 degrees overnight, I would allow them until 9 o'clock in the morning to do whatever they needed to do, and then they had to be off the road. So, everything went smoothly.
Question for Jim. Are we having a brush pickup day, and when will that be if we're having one?
Haven't given it a thought.
We can have
May
one.
7th,
May 7th is the point.
The same day as the cleanup?
So,
we usually.
yeah, I thought, yeah. we could go
May
with that.
7th is the cleanup, so maybe Jim and I can coordinate.
All right. We should let the public know.
Okay.
That's gonna be a
Including
tough
my
one.
wife.
Just remember, our brush pile is gonna get really big because I'm not gonna get permission to burn
Correct,
Because
until
of
we
drought.
get some water.
it. So it's
The brush pile is pretty big, I was up there today. It's getting,
that's the other thing we've done. We've collected on the order of 200 to 250 plus or minus mattresses over the winter. So we've just trying to top the C&D can off with them a little bit at a time, and then every once in a while, if we have a fairly light load on the garbage truck, we'll stuff it into the garbage truck, and so, an inordinate amount of mattresses.
Completely understand.
Okay. Brooke?
So today the lines are being painted on the field. We will be having Penny Baker Soccer has asked to use our field this spring for their soccer program. So we're going to be on the field every Saturday from 9 to 12, beginning this Saturday. Right now, I am interviewing for a couple of positions that are still open for the summer, but we are almost entirely hired for the summer, which is great. We have some special after-school event happening tomorrow. We are having a birthday party here in the rec on Friday, but it is a school group only. So the group coming in are all school children. Any food that's going to be served will be outside on the pickleball court, and so we're going to try to see how it goes. And other than that, just, we had a great turnout for the cleanup last Friday. It was awesome, and as everyone has noted, the snow melted so fast, really revealed a lot of garbage, so that's why we did that. But we are looking forward to our radio meeting in the beginning of May, so we were still gonna post that. And the Derby, we paid, got my second vaccine. Yeah, things are busy and those good.
Okay, great. Thank you, department heads. As always, let's look at our calendar review. Our next meeting, April 28th, I'm ready to go in person. Everybody else ready to be in person? Yes. Yeah, okay. So that'll be it.
wait a minute, you got one yes.
No, I'm fine.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, see.
All right.
everybody
You can wear
else.
your pajama bottoms.
all right. So
We can keep
where,
the people away from us.
yeah, where do you want to do it here, or do you want to do it in the downstairs meeting room, or do you want us to try to find a different place?
Well,
To
we
do.
don't want to constantly disrupt the after-school program, right?
No, I'm just, yeah.
I'd say try town hall and see what
Yeah.
happens if it becomes an issue.
Usually, we're just talking to ourselves at town hall. I
And
don't
maybe if there's a
expect
big
that there's
issue,
going to be a huge number.
Maybe if there's a big issue, we can ask people to stay outside and work the agenda to call the groups as privileged
Okay.
first, so they can get it in and out.
Or have the meeting up in the fire bed or something like that. Yeah.
Another option, if it really came to that, is that we don't have our program on Mondays and Fridays, so we could change your day.
Okay.
Are we at, Dave, are we at 6 or 3 feet now for social distancing?
We're 6, schools of 3.
We're 6, the town is 6, but the school is at 3?
Yeah. Don't ask
And
Can we go to 3?
gatherings of people, Is there any limit anymore?
For outdoors, no, indoors is still 50%.
No, well, some places are up to 100.
Yeah, and I think that did recently change, there was a list of venues
Right.
that did change, the restaurant.
But you
like-
still have to socially distance, so
Yeah.
it's not really 100%, it's whatever you can get in there.
But for
to
a
be
meeting,
socially.
like this, and I'm thinking about our May 11th meeting, does it matter how many people attend as long as we do a socially distanced
As
setup?
long as it's social, we can socially distance, you should be fine.
Okay,
There were
If it's
communities,
an unexpected big, large crowd,
well, there were communities that did town meeting in March, the regular second Tuesday of March, and they did this setup, and they had 200 or 300 people in their venue, so.
Okay.
There's no,
so yes, again, town meeting, the deliberative session, May 11th at 5:30 in the ICE Arena. The offices, the town offices are going to be closed on April 22nd and 23rd. That is the day when the town office is finally going to get new windows, which has been a project we've been waiting for quite some period of time. So that should be good for keeping the wind
a
out.
little warm, yes.
Yeah, okay. And Mark, you had a note here about future meeting status.
Yeah, so you already mentioned it, we're
Yeah.
gonna do it in person,
Mhm,
in the meeting.
And we'll record on YouTube and people can,
We will. We
Will
can
they-
live stream from there. We-
okay, we can do live stream.
Yeah, so people can call, well, they can contact us, we'll post what the contact is for folks to give you feedback electronically.
Okay.
This is YouTube, though, it'd be YouTube live stream.
Probably YouTube live stream is the easiest.
The
way to
default,
go,
what we used
The
to do.
default, like we did before.
Before
But they'll be able to,
Pre-code.
there's the chat feature now, so, and we can set up a text number, or take calls at town.
Okay. All right, on to new business. The first item is the use of the Curious George Cottage for a preschool. I guess the Ray Center came in and asked us about this last
December,
year,
yeah,
right?
December.
So, but the planning board has asked that we officially put our approval on the record.
Yeah, so Rich and Wendy are here. The planning board met last week and approved the site plan application with one condition, and Mike, sorry. With one condition, and that was to have the Board of Selectmen vote to allow the building to be used as a preschool.
Okay, I would like to move that we allow the Margaret and H.A. Ray Center to use the town's Curious George Cottage for a preschool. Can I have a second?
I will second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Rich, aye.
Mike, aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we have a request.
May I memorialize on that just a little bit? So
Sure.
people are clearly understanding. The emphasis for doing this was driven by the request of the people who live within the valley. All the attendees that have signed up are all families within the valley. Here, I view it, and this is, don't think for one moment, this is a money-making venture. I don't know how much it's gonna cost, but it's unlikely, very unlikely, we could break even on it.
Ask Alan.
But we are doing it substantially for the town, the demand is there, and I view it as a feeder for families, et cetera, et cetera. I just don't want people to get confused, who think this is money making.
I'd like to bring out a point because I've been approached by townspeople on this, where townspeople are very concerned that their funds going to the Ray Center is subsidizing this preschool for a very few number of children. So, and when we were approached with this, we were told this is a revenue neutral source, not a loss. So keep this in mind, that's how I'm improving this, I'm not improving this without any investigation going forward as to how this is gonna run, but how, am I correct in assuming that it was presented to us as a revenue neutral?
It was presented to us as the people that are participating in that program are going to be covering the costs of that
That's
program.
what the budget says.
That's what the budget says.
Right.
And we're just allowing our building to be used. I mean, it's not a, but as Mike was saying, given the amount of money, that is an issue. But in this case, the town is allowing them to use the building that the town owns for this purpose.
I just thought it was very interesting. Mark had shared with me some minutes from a selectmen's meeting back in the 1990s when did the town already own?
No,
The
that was
cottage.
when they were
Okay.
accepting it. It was
So-
actually a special town meeting and a selectmen's. meeting.
Okay, so it was very interesting because, you know, you had the Highlands involved because they owned the property, and did they own the house at that time? They owned the house at that time. You had Margaret herself involved. And so it was kind of like three groups getting together to approve the town getting the Curious George Cottage. And Margaret at the time also said that she was going to donate $35,000 in order to make the cottage ready for daycare, for childcare. And the cottage was actually used for childcare for a number of years. So this is not the first time that a small group of children has been taken care of in the town's Curious George Cottage. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah. All righty, next item is the September 3rd, 2021 noise ordinance extension request. What, do we have a wedding that wants to make a lot of noise?
Yes, well, they want to be able to have their use of the tent extended till 11 p.m.
11 p.m. instead of 10?
Instead of 10.
Am I missing this? I'm reading the emails, I'm not seeing any, I'm just saying.
Well,
What is
It's been
it?
a phone call.
Is this just a phone call and you're saying?
no, it was an email request that
Yeah, I got this, it
that
says.
came from the reservoir.
Yeah, we didn't get
I
the
got
detail.
confused too, because it was more, the more the information was in the subject line, it was in there.
Yeah, in the subject, look at the subject line of that email, and it says September 3rd.
Okay, good.
Yes.
No,
So there, so,
Okay, so,
Is that Labor Day weekend?
looks like it.
It does.
it does. Yes,
yes.
so it's
It's
the
the
Friday,
Friday.
it's the Friday of Labor Day weekend.
I don't have a problem.
No, I
So,
don't have a problem.
but I would like, if you could do a vote so that it's in the record, that'd be great. But we also need to couch this in terms of the new noise ordinance, if it passes on May 11th. So I would make this a conditional approval. If the new noise ordinance, we will need to make sure that they comply with the new noise ordinance.
But wouldn't this, if we do not pass the new noise ordinance, the old ordinance would be in place, and this would be asked until the old ordinance, so.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that when we tell them that they have approval to do this, that if the new ordinance is passed, that we'll be able to go back to them and make sure that they comply with the new ordinance.
Is there something in the new?
I think the new ordinance gives them this right to 11, doesn't it?
They do, and it did bring it to light, that I considered when I looked at this request.
Okay.
And there was one number left out in the exception of the new ordinance that I would like to have changed or added.
Was that a 0?
No, it was a number 3. The number 3 was left out on the second page in exemption, so it's an exemption for good cause to paragraph 1, 2, and it should say and 3, which is the music events, that sort of thing. So it currently says it grants an ordinance for construction, holidays, Sundays, that sort of thing, but I also would like the ordinance to reflect that you or your agent is also able to make an exception for special events also.
And so we can do that through one of two ways. We can have you make that as an editorial change, because it certainly was our intent to put the 3 in there. It was mistyped.
In the article.
In the, no, well, it's not in the warrant article, it's in the actual body of the ordinance. So we have not advertised that ordinance widely yet. So if we can make that change and post that, we still have 3 weeks, 3+ weeks before town meeting, or we can amend it at town meeting, whatever you want.
I noticed the oversight when this came up.
So what?
So I'm gonna make a motion that we grant an exception to the current noise ordinance, allowing this celebration to go on until 11 o'clock on September the 3rd, and to further, if the new revised noise ordinance is approved, that the extension is also approved under that new ordinance.
Could I will second that, but I think we need to amend it.
Well, let's do that as a separate,
Well-
let's take care of this motion.
Well, then I
first.
can't second it.
Why?
Because the old noise ordinance only refers to construction activity. It says nothing about special events.
Well, that's why the exception that you're granting is
to
that,
the-
is to the old one, which you have historically done. You've
Quiet time after
quiet
10.
time after 10 o'clock.
Is that in the old ordinance?
I got a suggestion.
I will,
Is
Let-
that-
I'd be willing
Let's
to.
table this for a second and deal with the ordinance. Let's amend the
Okay.
ordinance and then come back.
Okay, go ahead,
Okay,
go ahead.
so, yeah, so the motion is to amend the ordinance to fix
Fix the language of the ordinance to include number 3.
to comport with the intent the intent
Okay,
at the time it was.
I will make that motion if you can figure it out.
good, thank you.
I will second
Thank you.
that motion.
Are you
All
okay,
right,
Sharon?
all those in favor?
Aye. Mike, aye.
Richard.
Margaret, I we no longer.
You don't longer have to do that.
Because
Just
we're in
say-
person.
Yes, so you should.
So-
It's muscle memory at this
I
point.
like my team.
Right.
So is there another motion?
Now we can deal with it.
Before you vote on the request for exemption, the question I would ask is this. Once you grant an exception once, it opens the door, I disagree.
No,
We've done it.
just give history, Mike. We've been dealing with this exemption for years and granting it.
I'm aware of that. I'm fully aware of that. However, we are now dealing with a new ordinance. And the question that I'm asking is this going to be a precedent-setting environment? If the answer to that is we're going to grant these all the time, which is Mike's position, that's a fine answer.
Well, can I just address that? Because
Yeah, I can,
actually, when you see the language of the new ordinance, which is what Dave is talking about, the activities that can be granted, unlike our current ordinance, in the new ordinance, the activities that can be granted exceptions are enumerated, okay? So there is a process for the exemptions.
You're still granting
Well,
an exception.
but
And I have no problem with university granting them as long as that is the intent.
But there's specific examples.
exactly,
If someone goes, we'd like to blow off fireworks at 3 o'clock in the morning, we go, no.
that's
We'd
gonna
like
be,
to have the band till 11, yes. We want the band till 12:30, no.
right,
So what you're saying, I think, is that you are granting an exception in this case, but drawing a line as to what those exemptions will be.
that's
Correct.
correct, and it's a case by
So if
case
somebody
basis.
came back and asked for an extension until midnight, the answer is going to be no, we're only going to grant exceptions till 11.
Well, it depends on how they propose it and what they want to do. You know, if they're going to say they'd like to have this, but they're going to stop the music at 11, but they want to congregate, you know.
Construction, road workers
Yeah.
that say they've got a project that is 2 days and it might go on till Sunday, it gives them the higher parameter exception for that construction to occur on Sunday.
And put stipulations on that. You can come in Sunday, but you're not gonna start working until 10 o'clock. You're gonna be done working by 2.
Exactly. And that's what we've done in the
These aren't
past. now,
blanket
45.
exemptions.
No, it's at each request is individual and allows them, it just specifies what they can ask for exemption for.
And it is not it's not all that common that we get this request. We get probably 3 or 4 a year.
A year
Right.
for weddings.
Okay. Yeah.
None of which is covered by the current ordinance,
That's right.
because the current ordinance only refers to construction activity.
That-
Shall I read it, or shall we just
No,
accept what I'm saying?
I accept what you're saying, but historically you have
We've used the New Hampshire statute.
New Hampshire statute.
Thank you.
and
I
have-
knew it was somewhere.
Yes, so that's what I wanted to amend.
Your ability.
That's all I wanted to amend this thing.
You can grant wherever you want.
That's right. So
Wow, what power.
you are,
Well,
you
for the
are
moment.
tyrants.
All righty.
So what's
So
on
I
the
think,
table?
I think you're okay. I just, with the motion that you just made, let's deal with it if the new proposed ordinance fails. We'll come back and look at
Okay.
it, because you've granted,
But I would just tell,
And
I would just go back to Mike, the new ordinance is actually gonna be, much more comprehensive.
Right.
That's why we put it in
When I
there.
get a chance, I'll read it.
yeah, take a look at it. If you have any questions, let me know.
All righty. All right, we have to approve and sign the MS 636 budget
It's
form.
too exciting, isn't it?
It is.
I will make the motion to approve the MS 636. Is that
I'll second that motion, Casino.
All those in favor, aye.
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 Where's the signature page? Oh, right on.
It's right on.
All right. And we have some abatement requests.
Yep, so the first one is the Solomon Revocable Trust.
It's actually the Solomon Zackheim.
Zackheim, sorry, Solomon Zackheim Revocable Trust. Then as we put in the packet, there was a misapplied payment. They had 2 properties and it was a clerical error and it created a balance on the account and interest that's been accruing, and we're recommending that you abate that interest amount. Everything else in the account is in full, so.
So I make a motion that we abate the amount of $33.62 in interest on the Solomon Zycam Revocable Trust account. This occurred because of a clerical error. Can I have a second?
I will second that.
All right, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And then we have a second
Yeah,
abatement request.
which tracks with the abatements that you granted at, I think it was the last meeting, maybe the meeting before, with regard to the resort. There was one account that we did
We missed
not,
the $12.
$12.10.
and
Okay.
unfortunately, our limit is $10, so you have to deal with it. Unless you want to make it $50, and then you won't have to deal with these.
I thought we did a few years ago. I thought
No,
we
you didn't go up. I think it was something even more ridiculous, like $5 before you.
I mean, should we?
Well, it's up to you. 20,
So,
30, whatever you want to say.
this is not interest penalty. Oh, yeah. it
Yes,
is
interest.
penalty. Okay, so I move that we abate $12.10 in interest penalty for the Terrell Development Company LLC. This is in line with similar
Abatements.
abatement that we did in the past for that organization. Can I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay.
And Mike will look again, or Matt will look again at raising the amount.
Yeah, it's purely whatever you want, we can do differently in the office.
That's how you can phrase that.
What kind of action does that take on our part?
It's
Telling you,
It's
Margaret telling you to do it?
telling us as the staff that we can abate up to X amount of dollars.
Okay.
What amount
Do you
did
want-
you have?
What amount do you have? I'll go down to the end of the table.
I would say $25, $35, because that's usually an interest payment on, you know, a simple, quick interest payment where it's a clerical error that's been found quickly.
All right. I move that we allow town manager to do abatements without select board involvement up to $35.
I would second that.
All those in favor? Margaret, aye.
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 Thank you.
Hemi Baker Solid Waste Distribution Grant Application Letter.
Yep, so there are actually two items in this. There's the district is applying for their annual household hazardous waste program grant. And so we have this letter of commitment that we will participate in that and that we fully support their collection program. So I would ask that you approve that and sign it. And then as a second thing, you have a request from the district to update representative appointments to the district. The current representative is Jim Mayhew. Jim, you're also the treasurer of the organization?
No.
Oh, no more? Oh, you got rid of that job? How'd you get out of that job so quickly?
I was the chairman.
Oh, chairman. Whoa, you're more important.
I advocated.
Yeah, okay. And the current alternate is myself. So we would ask that you make a decision on reappointing those representatives. And then we will do the appointment letters on town letterhead for Margaret's signature, if you